and soap scum. Use as directed.
Get ready, Padres fans. It's time for the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
Tatis hit third, 2 outs. Fernando takes off. He's going to steal home without a play.
Coming up, we'll have a recap of the previous Padres game, a preview of today's starting pitching matchup, and our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Mike Shildt. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today the Padres take on the Washington Nationals in the second game of a 3-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Nationals, left-hander Mitchell Parker, and for the Padres, right-hander Matt Waldron. Hi again, everyone. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 3:45 p.m. for Game 2 of this 3-game set in Washington, D.C. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, you'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We hear from today's starting pitcher Matt Waldron, and in just a little bit, we check in with Tony Gwynn Jr. But first, let's set the table. Brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa, Vista, and Oceanside. Padres entered today 53-50 after losing the opener of this 9-game road trip. The Padres have now won 3 in a row, 2 games in Cleveland, and last night's series opener in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, the Nationals come in 47-54. They had a 3-game win streak snap last night. Padres are now 4-0 against the Nationals so far in 2024. The Padres swept them here in San Diego back in June. The Padres enter today a half game out of the NL's final wild card spot.
How did the Padres fare in their last game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind. Presented by Hamul Casino. With thrilling slots and tables and all the best rewards, Hamul Casino has all the fun you're looking for. Hamul Casino. Fun above all else.
In the series opener last night, we had a scoreless game in the top of the 5th inning, but thanks to Luis Arraez, it was scoreless no more.
1-2, Arraez hits it in the air to right field pretty deep. Thomas is backing up. He's at the big wall, looks up, gonna go! Luis Arraez with his 3rd home run as a Padre. And a couple of pitches after they knock him down, he takes one out, and the Padres lead it 1-0.
Jurickson Profar was next.
Now Profar steps into one, hits it to deep left and gone over the Padre bullpen. And on back-to-back pitches, they hit back-to-back home runs, and it's 2-0.
Meanwhile, Randy Vasquez just kept on rolling. He was through 5 scoreless innings on only 50 pitches. Manny Machado led off with a double to begin the top of the 6th inning. He went to third base on a ground out. That set things up for Jackson Merrill.
Pitch to Merrill is lined into right field. That's a base hit. That's going to add on. Manny trots home from third base. Jackson Merrill's 2nd hit of the night is an RBI single, and the Padres up 3-0.
Vasquez pitched into the 7th inning. His final line, 6 innings, no runs, 4 hits. He struck out 1, walked nobody on only 68 pitches. He was remarkably good in the game and also efficient. Padres then scratched across another run in the top of the 8th inning, an RBI ground out from Merrill. That made it 4-0. The bullpen last night was great. Adrian Morejon pitched a scoreless 7th, Jeremiah Estrada a scoreless 8th, and it was Robert Suarez in the 9th inning.
0-2 pitch. Wood swings and misses. Strike 3. 100-mile-an-hour heater to close the door, and the ball game is over. Padres come to Washington, and they continue to pitch. A 4-0 shutout win over the Nationals behind Randy Vasquez, and back-to-back home runs from Luis Arraez and Jurickson Profar.
The Padres' 2nd shutout win in their last 3 games. The Padres pitching staff has been absolutely terrific as of late. We'll talk more about that as we go along in our pregame coverage, with first pitch at Nationals Park coming up at 3:45. As always, if you want to get involved on our pregame coverage, you can do that in a variety of ways. You can tweet at me at SammyLev, SammyLev, LEV. Instagram DMs open as well. Sammy Lev there too. Let me know, what is your key to today's game in Game 2 of this 3-game set? I may just read your key to the game coming up a little bit later on. Let's go to DC.
Let's go inside the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup from Tony Gwynn Jr. in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Tony, a little bit later in our pregame show, we'll play some of what Mike Shildt had to say before today's game, and I thought it was a really interesting conversation on really, I suppose, bullpen ideology, and we bring it back to what the Padres did yesterday in using Jeremiah Estrada, using Robert Suarez, not in a save situation, but rather, and I thought you and Jesse put it really well yesterday, using them in not allowing the save situation to necessarily dictate how you manage a bullpen. So it brings me to this, Tony, your thoughts on what Mike Shildt's done this year in that sense, because last night was not the first time we've seen him be a little bit more aggressive with his high leverage relievers than maybe other managers would be.
Well, let's unpack this a little bit. I think when you look at this bullpen, at least at the beginning of the season, you really just had Robert Suarez, right? Wandy Peralta was good at times, but he was up and down. De Los Santos was good at times, but was also up and down. And you had a bunch of guys kind of doing that. Kolek was trying to find his way, And so that being said, Mike Shildt really had to piece it together. I don't know if you remember, you guys would go 2/3 of an inning, a third of an inning, and he was kind of patchworking it to get to Robert Suarez. And then you had the emergence of Jeremiah Estrada, right? So he's able to kind of slide into that spot in the 8th inning, but you're still having to kind of piece it together with some inconsistent play. And now, Morton has kind of appeared and stepped up and been able to take over that 7th inning role. That wasn't the case until about, a month ago, when they were having to have a 7, 8, 9. Prior to that, he had to kind of piece it together. You throw on top of that, guys have been in and out of the starting rotation, which has also affected the bullpen. I think he's done a magnificent job managing the bullpen. And that answer he gave gave a little insight to some of the folks who watch the game and may not understand why he's going about it the way he does. There's always a method to the madness.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good answer, and I encourage people to stay tuned into our next segment. We're going to play a lot of what he said before today's game. Really interesting look behind the curtain, if you will, as to some of the thinking behind the way he's managed the bullpen, and a good look into what he did last night as well. Let's talk about Xander Bogaerts. He's been pretty good since coming off the IL. 2 hits in 5 of his 6 games since returning from the injury. As of late, Tony, what have you seen from Xander?
He looks healthy. He looks in rhythm, which is something I don't know that we've seen him consistently be in, especially this season. And to me, it's the eye test. One of the things that I think everybody liked about Xander Swing, at least I liked about Xander Swing coming into this deal with the Padres, was that he just kind of had that whippy action through the zone. And you're starting to see that here as he's come off the IL. That bat is really kind of flying through the zone, and he's hitting everything hard. And I think that's certainly a good sign for him. Hopefully he can continue to keep pushing forward.
A couple of young arms on the mound here today. Matt Waldron for the Padres, left-hander Mitchell Parker on the mound for Washington. Tony, let's talk about Matt Waldron. Obviously, it's been an excellent season, a breakout season, and he continues to put up great numbers. He was really good despite the loss on Friday in Cleveland. So let me ask you this, Tony. In the final couple of months here, what do you want to see from Matt Waldron? Is there another level of his game that you feel like could be unlocked? Just a general sense of these final couple of months. What do you want to see from this guy?
No, I don't want to see anything other than what I've seen from Matt Waldron. I think so often, especially as players in this league, you have some success and there's this urge to find more and to do more. And a lot of times it just messes everything up. So I want to see him just continue to stay the course, continue to go out and learn about himself as he is finding his way at the big league level, and just continue to do the things he did, because that has been really good, and it's been better than I think anybody could have expected from him coming into the season.
Tony, let's touch on one other young player before I let you go, and that's Jackson Merrill facing another left-hander here today in Mitchell Parker on the mound for the Nationals. He had been slumping before the break, a bit of a quiet couple of games out of the break, or really I should say he had 2 hits on Saturday, then he had 2 more hits in yesterday's game. Your thoughts on Jackson as of late and really these last 2-3 games, what he's been doing?
The highest compliment you can pay to really any player is that you don't think about them in the lineup. Like, right. I don't think about, oh man, Jackson's spots. Like you almost feel you feel like you know what you're getting from him on a nightly basis. I know he went through a little bit of a rut there before the break. Got off to kind of a slow start the first couple of games. I think he punched out his first 6, but he always water always finds its level with him, it seems like. And so I'm to the point now where Jackson is. He might as well be Luis Ariz or any of the guys that at the top of the lineup that you just kind of pencil in and let them do what they do. I think Jackson's starting to put himself into that category. I no longer think about his spot in the lineup because you just feel like you know what you're going to get.
And situationally, he just does so many things really well. That at bat late in the game yesterday, run around third base against the left-hander, finds a way to put the ball in play and get an insurance run in. It's just the little things he does. They're really, really impressive. Tony, as always, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Jesse coming up at 3:35 here on the West Coast. Thanks so much.
No problem, Sam.
All right, that is Tony Gwynn Jr. joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show as we get ready for today's game on the Padres radio network. Again, we go out to Jesse and Tony at 3:35, first pitch in Game 2 of this 3-game series. At 3:45, Padres going for a series win, for a 5th win this season against the Nationals and a 4th win in a row on this 9-game road trip. So a really nice opportunity for the Padres against these Nationals to not only win another game against the Nats, but really build some momentum on this trip before they head to Baltimore for obviously a very tough series against a first-place Orioles team. When we come back, we hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We also tell you who's hot, who's not. Plus, coming up a little bit later, we hear from today's starting pitcher, Matt Waldron. We also have our keys to the game, a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, and much, much more to do as we walk you up towards first pitch in Washington, D.C. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues after this on the Padres Radio Network.
You're listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com for a free water test and consultation. Your water should be perfect.
Homeowners, for a limited time, Comfort Pros Heating, Air, and Plumbing is offering a $29 AC tune-up or drain clearing to unclog any drain with an accessible clean-out. Only $29 for an AC tune-up or drain clearing. Visit ComfortBros.com. That's ComfortBros.com.
Hey, sports fans, Tony Gwynn Jr. here. The baseball races are heating up, but is your old deck going to make it to the postseason? Now's a great time to upgrade to TimberTech. TimberTech is everything wood should be. Get free samples or find a local contractor at TimberTech.com.
Now that baseball season is in
WFN HD1 San Diego.
Hi, this is Jackson Merrill. The Padres play here on 97.3 The Fan.
An Odyssey Sports Station.
Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:45 in Washington, D.C. Game 2 of this 3-game set between the Padres and the Washington Nationals as we welcome you back into our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. Your water perfected. EcoWater SoCal. Your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Let's hear from the Padre manager before today's game.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Like we said in our opening segment with Tony Gwynn Jr., Xander Bogaerts is playing well right now since coming off the IL. He has 2 hits in 5 of his 6 games since returning from the IL. Xander back in the lineup for the Padres here tonight. Here was Mike Shildt on Xander Bogaerts so far since coming off the IL.
Looks like the bogey that, we all expect. We saw, actually earlier part of this year at times and, last year as well. So he looks like he's in a really good spot, and he's having really productive at-bats, and it's really been great to have him back.
And by the way, a quick look at the Padres lineup here today. It looks like this. Luis Arraez, the DH, leading off. Jurickson Profar in left field batting second. Xander Bogaerts, the second baseman, batting third. Manny Machado at third base batting cleanup. Jake Cronenworth at first base batting fifth. Ha-Sung Kim, the shortstop, batting seventh. Jackson Merrill in center field batting eighth. Jackson Merrill in center field batting seventh. At some point here reading the lineup, I may have started messing this up. It's Arraez, Profar, Bogaerts, Machado, Cronenworth, Kim, Merrill, Higashioka, and Johnson. At some point, I started saying, this guy's batting here, and I was one off. Pardon me. Anyway, back to much more important things. Mike Shildt. We talked about it with Tony Gwynn Jr. in our opening segment, and we talked about it last night on the post-game show. The aggressive nature in which Mike Shildt continues on a lot of nights to manage the bullpen. Last night was a really good example where the Padres had a 4-0 lead, and Mike Shildt still elected to use Jeremiah Estrada and then Robert Suarez in what was a non-save situation. And last night we described it as not allowing the save situation to dictate the way you use the bullpen. And Mike Shildt did not allow that save situation, or lack thereof, in yesterday's game to dictate or affect the way he was going to use his high leverage relievers late in the game. This is a long answer and back and forth here with Mike Shildt, but I think it's really interesting and really gives you some good insight into Mike Shildt's thinking about the bullpen. Here was Mike earlier today on Robert Suarez, and then again, really interesting thoughts on bullpen usage and management.
I mean, he's been enormous for us. I mean, he's been an absolute pillar of our club and been able to be a guy we can count on at the end of games, and that's huge. You fight for 9 innings, or some case extra innings, but you fight for 8 or 9 innings to get the lead. That goes into it, and then to have somebody there to close it down and bring it home is vital.
Just out of curiosity, how does the 3-batter minimum affect what you're doing in the ninth inning? Last night might not be the perfect example, but knowing that you're not going to be able to bring him in for 4 guys and catch and fix them, what does that change in your?
Actually, last night was like the perfect example of it. And I think you alluded to something else, like availability. Last night was the 3rd time Robert's pitched in 11 days. If you're winning a lot of games, some days you're just not going to be available, and you got to figure that part out, and other people have to step up. But because of his availability, we were able to pitch him last night. Now, relative to the score and the 3-batter minimum, based on experience, and nothing's absolute. We don't get to manage games in a do-over. So my point last night, you're at the middle of their lineup. we've used two of our high leverage guys to hold the lead, which they did very well in Morihone and Estrada. And now you're in a non-safe situation, which I completely get. But in a 3-batter minimum, if you have somebody else that goes out, which has happened in the 9th inning for us, and now 2 of those 3 guys get on, and you want to go under, again, I've managed my own way, but if you look up and you always want to give your closer a 1-batter hall pass. Now, sometimes, like the other day in Cleveland, the game dictates there's no, it starts right out. It's 2-1 game in the 9th that he inherits in the 9th. But you have a 3-batter minimum, and 3 guys got a bat, and there's a 2, 3, and 4 hitter, and 2 of those 3 guys get on, or all 3 of them get on. Now you're bringing in your closer with 1 or nobody out, with either the tie and run or the go ahead or the tie and run on deck, and that happens around this league, and it's happened this year. So it's also something that, to your point about availability, if we're having to use Robert more, we may not do that last night, or he may not be available for that situation, and then we go to another option. And again, the other options are, we have confidence in them, but they're not an all-star guy that has proven himself this year. Does that help explain it?
Yep.
Is that even more at the forefront of your mind than a couple nights earlier? You got chasing 2, go to lower leverage arms,
That's right.
And it gets away from you. Is that?
That's exactly right, Tony. Couldn't be more well said. We also talked about after that game, because there's also people, and I imagine you ask the questions because curious minds want to know, why do you do these things? And people have their opinions, which is the beautiful thing about baseball. But to T's point, we're down 1-0. We're coming off an all-star break. And people can say, well, go chase it with your higher leverage guys. Well, you start to do that, they're not available for what we just got through doing the last 3 days. And really, like I explained, the ability for good to great teams is to be able to pitch your guys that aren't the high leverage guys in still higher leverage situations, whether you're down 1 in the 8th in a 1-0 game, and hold it there to give yourself a chance to come back and win a game, or when you go on a run and you're winning games, you're using your guys to win the games, because we did win the game last night, with no crystal ball as to what's going to happen tonight or tomorrow, because all of our back-end guys are available tonight. Those same guys, when those back-end guys aren't available on a really good club, are the guys that can pitch and give you a chance to bring it home when they're not available. And that's how you stack up wins.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt before today's game. And again, I know a long answer there and back and forth about the bullpen and why the Padres have used Robert Suarez the way they've used him, and a good insight or look into last night and the way they used Estrada and Suarez in what was a 4-run game. So I thought that was a really interesting back and forth and series of answers from Mike Shildt. I thought you got a really good idea on some of the ideology, philosophy behind the way that Mike Shildt has used the bullpen at times this season. First pitch coming up at 3:45 in Washington, D.C. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
We begin with a look at the hot categories. Xander Bogaerts in that category for the Padres right now. 2 more hits last night. He's had 2 hits in 5 out of his 6 games since coming off the IL. If you go back to before he fractured his left shoulder, Bogaerts is batting .360 in his past 13 games. So Bogey is swinging the bat pretty well as of late, even before the injury. Juan Yepez for the Nationals in the midst of a 14-game hitting streak. Right now, the longest active hitting streak in the major leagues. He's batting .377 in that span with a .441 on-base percentage. Of his 20 hits in the hitting streak, 9 have gone for extra bases. In the not category, we take a look at one Padre and one National. Bryce Johnson for the Padres, just 4 for 32 to begin his time with San Diego, went 0 for 3 in last night's game, and Johnson is back in the lineup playing right field for the Padres here today. James Wood, former Padres prospect, now on the Nationals, batting just .182 in his last 44 at-bats with 18 strikeouts in his last 11 games. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not, as we get ready for Game 2 of this 3-game series in Washington, D.C. When we come back on our EcoWater SoCal, Padres pregame show will take you around the horn, get you up to speed on some of the headlines from around MLB. Also, we'll take a look at our keys to the game, and coming up a little bit later, we'll hear from today's starting pitcher, Matt Waldron. First pitch coming up at 3:45 on the Padres Radio Network.
Hey, guys.
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 3:45. Game 2 of this 3-game series between the Padres and the Nationals. Padres going for a 4th consecutive win. As always, we invite you to share your keys to today's game on social media or on our various video streams. So let's get to a couple of those keys. We have Austin on YouTube saying, my key to the game is Matt goes 6 innings. Padres score at least 3 runs. Austin, Well, that would be a good start to a recipe for a win here today. Matt Waldron, a good start. The offense doing some good things. We have Ricky on Twitter saying keys to the game, early run support to allow bullpen some breathing room without having to rely heavily on Morejon, Estrada, and Suarez. The Padres did have to use that trio out of the bullpen yesterday. So, Ricky, your point is well taken. Would be nice to maybe have a more lopsided win here today. We'll see if the Padres offense can make that happen. And by the way, you mentioned run support. We'll talk about that in just a little bit with Matt Waldron as we get ready for today's game coming up at 3:45. Let's take a look at some of the headlines today around the major leagues.
What's the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball? Sam Levitt takes you around the horn on the Padres Radio Network.
We take a look at some headlines from around the majors. A couple of notes about tonight's Giants-Dodgers game in L.A. The Giants' Tyler Fitzgerald will try to do something tonight that no rookie has ever done since at least 1900, and that's hit a home run in 6 consecutive games. He'll face Dodgers righty Tyler Glasnow tonight in L.A. Glasnow coming off the IL. He was leading the major leagues in strikeouts before he went on the IL earlier this month. Robbie Ray is also finally making his Giants debut in that game. The Giants traded for him back in the offseason in a deal with the Mariners. Ray had Tommy John surgery in May of last year. He makes his return to the mound for San Francisco, and again, his Giants debut here today. The Brewers put Christian Yelich on the IL earlier today because of lower back inflammation. It's his second stint on the IL this season because of a back injury. Reports are that Yelich is scheduled to see a spine specialist tomorrow and determine whether he needs season-ending surgery. Yelich currently leading the NL in batting average at .315 and on-base percentage at .406. The Brewers currently have a 5-game lead over the Cardinals for first place in the National League Central. ESPN reporting that the Red Sox and their manager Alex Cora are talking about a potential contract extension that would be for 3 years and more than $21 million. Cora currently in the final year of his contract as Red Sox manager. And finally, the Mariners put both Julio Rodriguez and J.P. Crawford on the IL yesterday. Rodriguez with a right ankle sprain and Crawford with a hairline fracture in his right pinky finger. Things not going well in Seattle right now. They led the American League West by 10 games at one point, and entering today, the Astros are now tied with the Mariners for first place in that division. And that is a full look at some of the headlines from around Major League Baseball on this Wednesday. Right-hander Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres here today, trying to continue what has been a terrific 2024. As we know, really all season, Matt Waldron has been caught by Kyle Higashioka, who's become sort of a specialist behind the plate, catching that knuckleball. Here was Matt Waldron inside the Padres clubhouse earlier this week on his relationship with Higashioka.
He likes to keep it light and just he's a funny guy. So I think just knowing that we get in very competitive situations and just off the field and around the clubhouse, we just kind of like a friendly relationship. But then on game days, it's obviously a little bit different, just more structure and more of a game plan.
How would you describe him back there as far as some pitchers like a guy to kind of keep him in the lane, keep your emotions in check? Walk me through what it's like for you in the course of a game with him, how you two work together on an emotional level.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's a very smart hitter too. I always see him back there looking at the hitter and just kind of I just trust his intuition on what they're looking for, and just a very experienced guy. So I just, I use that out of him, and obviously he's a great baseball player.
Here was Matt Waldron on watching Dylan Cease and Michael King this past weekend in Cleveland.
It's nice to be able to, they set the bar high. So you feel good about your outing, and then you watch them pitch like Dylan and King right now. It's fun. I get to see. It's just completely different pitchers too, for the most part. Our arsenal, me mainly, but it's awesome to be able to compete with them, and it's a good, healthy relationship.
We'll hear from Matt Waldron a little bit later in this segment. Get some thoughts from Matt on the current state of his knuckleball and how he throws that knuckleball. So stay tuned for that. Let's update you on the injuries for the Friars.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Nothing new to report today as far as the Padres' current injuries, both the shorter-term injuries and the longer-term injuries. Wandy Peralta, as we know, he was put on the 15-day IL right before the All-Star break with a left adductor strain. No real update on Peralta right now. Fernando Tatis Jr., as we know, underwent an MRI over the All-Star break to take a look at that right femoral stress reaction, and it did reveal enough healing that he was cleared for light baseball activity, including swinging and running. So we will wait for the next update on Fernando Tatis Jr. Joe Musgrove threw his second bullpen session on July 20th, incorporating breaking pitches for the first time. It came 3 days after his first bullpen session, and he is reported feeling no issues with that right elbow. Again, he's been on the IL for a while with right elbow inflammation. And that's a look at our injury update today. Really nothing new to report on, but Peralta certainly somebody to keep an eye on when he may come back. And then obviously we continue to wait for further updates on the hopeful returns of both Joe Musgrove and Fernando Tatis Jr. Let's now give you our keys to today's game.
How will the Padres unlock a victory in today's game? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Honor Buick GMC Hummer in National City.
Pardon me, I had a little bit of a brain freeze there. I meant to say out-of-town scoreboard, but we'll go in our reverse order today. Keys to the game. Key number 1. Maintain the power of the pitching staff. Padres pitching has been just sensational on this road trip and in this 3-game winning streak. In the last 3 games, Padres pitching has allowed 1 run on 8 hits. That's it. 3 games, 1 run on 8 hits. That is spectacular. The starting pitching has been just terrific as well. In the 4 games on this road trip, Matt Waldron, Dylan Cease, Michael King, Randy Vasquez, they've combined to allow 2 runs in 26 innings. That's a 0.69 ERA. Can Matt Waldron, can the Padres pitching staff continue to maintain the power of their pitching staff? That's key number 1. Key number 2, get Matt Waldron some runs. Matt Waldron has a 3.99 ERA in his last 5 starts. He does not have a win in any of those 5. A big part of that is the Padres are not giving him much run support at all. In 3 of his last 4 starts, the Padres have scored 1 or no runs. In fact, if you go back even farther to the beginning of June, the Padres have scored 1 run or less in 5 of his last 9 starts. So the bottom line is this: Padres offense, the bats, score some runs for Matty Nux. Got to get Matt Waldron some run support here today. That's key number 2. Part of how they can do that brings us to key number 3. Jerks and Profar continuing to bother the Nats. 2 home runs and 8 RBIs against the Nationals this season, including the home run in yesterday's game. He has at least 1 RBI in all 4 games against Washington so far this year. And that's a look at our keys to the game as the Padres get ready to take on the Washington Nationals. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We have a number of finals already today. Astros beat the A's 8-1 in Oakland earlier today. Rockies beat up on the Red Sox 20-7. The score like you would see with the Broncos and the Patriots. 20-7, the Rockies beat the Red Sox. 21 hits for the Rocks today. Brewers beat the Cubs 3-2 in Chicago. Twins beat the Phillies 5-4 in Minnesota. Pirates beat the Cardinals 5-0 in Pittsburgh. Rowdy Tellez, a home run in that game for the Pirates. Doubleheader today, or at least it was scheduled to be in Atlanta. Reds won game 1 of that doubleheader 9-4. Game 2 of that doubleheader, they can't get in because of rain. So the second game of that doubleheader now postponed, and they will make that up in September between the Reds and the Braves. We have one game going on right now. Angels 2, Mariners 1 in Seattle in the 9th inning. Everything else coming up a little bit later. Orioles in Miami against the Marlins, Mets and the Yankees in New York, Subway Series in the Bronx, Tigers and the Guardians in Cleveland, Rays and the Blue Jays in Toronto, White Sox and the Rangers in Arlington, Diamondbacks in Kansas City against the Royals, and finally the Giants and the Dodgers in LA. Again, Tyler Glasnow off the IL in that game for the Dodgers. Robbie Ray making his first start since undergoing Tommy John surgery last year. He will make his Giants debut in that game for San Francisco. Full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Wednesday. When we come back on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show, we'll tell you what to watch for in today's game and also hear a little bit more from Matt Waldron, today's starting pitcher, as the Padres play Game 2 of this 3-game series. First pitch coming up at 3:45 on the Padres Radio Network.
Stick
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. First pitch coming up at 3:45 in Washington, D.C. Game 2 of this 3-game series between the Padres and the Nats. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. Let's tell you what to watch for in today's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in today's game? Well, we see Jackson Merrill continue to break out. Merrill had 2 hits and 2 RBIs in Saturday's game in Cleveland, or I should say 2 hits and an RBI on Saturday in Cleveland. He had 2 hits and 2 RBIs in last night's game. Merrill had been in a real slump before Saturday, batting just 132 in a span of 10 games going back to before the All-Star break. So what am I looking for in today's game? Do we see Jackson continue to hit the ball better 2 hits Saturday, 2 hits yesterday, 3 RBIs total. That's what I'm watching for in today's game. Another tough matchup for Jackson today against left-hander Mitchell Parker on the mound for the Nationals. On the mound for the Padres, right-hander Matt Waldron. Here was Waldron yesterday inside the Padres clubhouse talking about the current state of his knuckleball.
Yeah, I'm relying on it pretty heavy right now, so I'd say I wouldn't say I live and die by it, but I definitely am more leaning towards that right now. Like it's I wanted to work out, early in the game, or obviously I wanted to work out, but just I use the knuckleball like heavy right now, so it's like I established that early and then kind of see where they're at as a hitter.
Waldron will throw some different variations of that knuckler, vary the speed. Here was Waldron on throwing that hard knuckleball, and then later in the game, maybe varying its speed.
When I throw it hard, I don't want to lose my delivery. I don't want to rush. You still don't want to rush as a pitcher and tip anything. And not that I'm really rushing a whole lot, but it's, I kind of settle. Like I like to establish the peak of it a little bit and then like throttle down and then kind of throttle back up. Just tempo-wise and, the intensity level of it. I can't say I love throwing the slow one too often, just in terms of, I don't know, it just doesn't, I haven't gotten that one down as well, I feel like.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview. Presented by Chimney Sweeps, Inc., San Diego's trusted chimney and fireplace service company for 40 years. Call Chimney Sweeps, Inc. at 1-800-CHIMNEY or book an inspection online at chimneysweepsinc.com.
On the mound for the Padres, the guy you just heard from, right-hander Matt Waldron. The 27-year-old is 5-9 with a 3.59 ERA and 20 starts so far this season, 112-plus innings. He struck out 99, walked 31. Friday in Cleveland, 6 innings, 1 earned run allowed, 6 hits. He struck out 5. This will be Waldron's second start against the Nationals this season. He went 6 innings and gave up 2 runs against them on June 24th. Arsenal for Waldron, as we know, he throws that knuckler 40% of the time. Also will mix in the sweeper, four-seam fastball, sinker, and a cutter. On the mound for the Nats, left-hander Mitchell Parker, 24-year-old rookie, 5-5, 3.90 ERA this season in 17 starts, 92-plus innings. He's allowed 84 hits, struck out 76, and walked 21. His last start was rough. 11 days ago in Milwaukee, gave up 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning. He threw 46 pitches to the 7 batters he faced, and again, did not escape the first inning. Before that, he'd been pretty good. Parker went at least 5 innings in 14 of his first 16 starts since being called up in mid-April. And the arsenal for Mitchell Parker, four-seam fastball, he throws it nearly half of the time. Throws a curveball 25% of the time. Also will mix in the splitter and the slider. And that's a full look at our pitching matchup today. Couple of young arms going at it. Matt Waldron for the Padres and Mitchell Parker on the mound for Washington. You've been listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres radio network. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Padres come in a record of 53-50. They lost the opener of this 9-game road trip, but the Padres have now won 3 in a row, 2 games in Cleveland, and last night's series opener in Washington. The Padres pitching staff has been excellent as of late. They've allowed 1 run on 8 hits in their last 3 games. Can Matt Waldron and the boys keep it rolling today in Washington? Well, we're going to find out. When we come back, Jesse Ackler, Tony Gwynn Jr. have the starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game show. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan, and the Padres Radio Network.
Every day is an extraordinary Earth Day at Computers to Kids. C2K is celebrating